So the UK is a mess of a country. I spoke to someone from the UK a week ago, and he was telling me about how it's almost impossible to find a good job there. It's very difficult outside of London anyway. They have the financial sector and services around London, but outside of London, these old industrial towns in England, it is very hard to find a good job, and housing is very expensive. A lot of young people in Britain, just like everywhere else around the West, don't feel like they could possibly afford a house. I got very lucky and bought my house at the right time back in 2019. But a lot of people, like Gen Zers, a lot of millennials, don't think that it's even possible for them. And yet, in the UK, they spent enormous amount of money. They spent, what is it, $22.6 billion in the UK to house and give supplies to migrants, people who are not Britain. These are people from North Africa, the Middle East, from sub-Saharan Africa that are given houses, given cars, been given quote-unquote free medical care. None of this stuff is free. Somebody had to pay for it. It was the people who pay taxes in the UK that paid for all this, when, like many people in the UK, particularly young people, can't even really afford to live. So this is obviously replacement. You're replacing your native population with people who aren't Britons. This, of course, is being done on purpose. It's philosophically nihilistic at its root, but it's not just an intellectual exercise. It's applicable to everything. It's to say that that the political class, the ruling class of Britain, favor a population that doesn't come from a tradition of Western thinking, of some degree of free market, in the case of Britain, or some degree of of like the type of discipline of how should I say it? Like there's like some degree of self-efficacy in the West. I think Britain is a little bit more so than continental Europe, and the United States is even more than Britain is. But the elites don't want a thinking population that uses logic and reasoning. They're going to import a more superstitious population because they're easier to control. See, it's not about advancing civilization. It's not about, if you want to be in power, to advance yourself and be good at something. Instead, they want to remain in power by screwing everybody else, right? By pushing everybody else down, by getting in their way to forcibly take a portion of their income to fund their destruction, the people's destruction. It just absolutely amazes me. Now, with as far as their elections, I'm sure there's fraud involved, but there's still a lot of people, Britons, I would imagine, in London that still vote for this stuff. Why? I don't understand it. They're in their own little bubble. I can understand why, these like regions of these European countries want to break away, because they feel like that's the only way they even have a chance. But anyway, I'm not going to get too much into European politics. It's a mess on so many levels. But again, this goes back to a nihilistic philosophy, that there's no logic and reasoning. There's no self-efficacy. There's no, if you want to become powerful, there's, a degree of accountability and responsibility for that. It has to change on a philosophic level more than anything. And, that's what my channel is attempting to do, at least.